Hi everyone, I am here with a true story for you from this book. Alright, and this story is by Jim M. And it is called Bullet Stopping Prayer. Bring, bring. The phone rang out at 1:14 a.m. Oh, that's never good. Sunday morning. Your son has been gravely injured, an unknown voice said on the line. We need your medical insurance information before we can transport him to the hospital. Take him and get it later. Our fun-loving son Jay had traveled to the mountains in Colorado with some friends. My wife Julie and I didn't have a good feeling about the trip or the friends he was going with, and neither did Jay. Why did he go? Our daughter even had misgivings about it. At the last minute, however, he decided to go. Later, we heard more of the story. Jay and his friends heard a deer moving above their campground, so they went to have a look. Jay was carrying a .22 caliber handgun. Why his friend brought it along, we don't know. Whether they saw a deer or not, we don't know. What we do know is that Jay slipped and dropped the gun and it fired. Jay didn't immediately realize he'd shot himself, but he did feel a shock go through his body. The slug entered his groin, missing the main artery by the narrowest of margins. If it had severed that artery, he would have bled out and died before he could have reached help. The long, bumpy ride out of the campsite to the main road was torturous. Upon reaching that road, the boys realized they were a long way from anywhere. Fortunately, there was an emergency phone by the roadside from which they called for help. When help came, they called us. It was a frightening wake-up call. I gave them the medical insurance information, and they told me they would transport Jay to the local rural hospital 45 minutes away. Oh. No good thoughts were going through our heads. Once Jay was at the hospital, I contacted the emergency physician on my cell phone, asking for Jay to be transferred to Denver, where I knew he would receive better care. We don't have time, the physician said. We need to do a workup and operate immediately, or we might lose him. My wife and I jumped into our car. The 2.5-hour drive into the mountains was a horrible ride, fraught with terrible thoughts of losing our son. After a while, Julie said, "Please stop talking about it. I can't take any more." We arrived at the hospital just as they wheeled Jay out of the operating room. He was alive and would surely make it. The road back would be long, but there was a road back. Once we knew Jay was going to be all right, we had to call our daughter Jessica and let her know what happened. At the time, she was on a mission trip to India, and the team had very strict rules that parents were not to call unless it was a dire emergency. We found the phone number and placed a call to India. One of the counselors answered, and I nervously explained that we indeed had a family emergency. He called in Jessica. I will never forget her first words to me. Crying, she blurted out, "Is Jay dead?" I was shocked. She went on to relate that earlier that week she'd had a feeling Jay was going to die. She'd asked members of her team to pray for him. What a joyous report I could give to Jay's sister. "No, Jessica, Jay is not dead. He is alive. He was shot, but the bullet just missed the artery." "Dad," she replied, "it was our prayers and the hand of God that stayed the bullet." Amen. Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is anything too difficult for me? Jeremiah 32:27. And no, nothing is impossible for God. I hope you guys have a good night.